Caliph Haroun-al-Raschid sat in his palace, surrounded by absolute power, yet finding no amusement in anything the world had to offer. Every luxury was available, yet his days had become a repetitive cycle of boredom. He reached a point where even the most exquisite treasures felt like part of the furniture. This apathy was interrupted when Jafar, the Grand Vizier, entered the hall. He refused to let the silence continue, bowing low before the slumped figure of his master. Jafar reminded the Caliph of a standing commitment to go out into Baghdad in secret and see for himself how justice and order were being maintained. Absolute power creates a distance that can only be bridged by leaving the throne behind. Without direct contact with the streets, a ruler governs a city he no longer understands. To enter that world, they had to shed their identity. They traded their royal silks for the rough, heavy coats worn by foreign merchants. They left through a secret door, crossed the river in a boat, and walked the furthest city districts. On the riverbank, the Caliph was just another traveler. Without his guards or his titles, he was forced to see the city as a participant rather than a judge. This put the ultimate lawmaker in a unique position. He was now a nameless observer, navigating the very system he built from above. Initially, the city appeared to be in perfect health. The streets were quiet, the people were orderly, and the laws seemed to be functioning exactly as intended. But as they reached a bridge leading back toward the city center, they were stopped by an old, blind man begging for alms. The Caliph dropped a coin into his hand, but as he tried to walk away, the beggar gripped his wrist with surprising strength and refused to let go. The man made a bizarre request. He would only accept the money if the Caliph also struck him across the face. The Caliph tried to refuse, offering only kindness, but the beggar became more insistent. He claimed he had sworn an oath to receive nothing without also receiving a blow. Eventually, the Caliph yielded and struck the man lightly before ordering the vizier to summon the beggar to the palace the following day. In this moment, the predictable logic of the state failed. A simple act of charity had transformed into a demand for violence, creating a mystery that the Caliph's laws could not explain. Later, in a public square, they encountered a second disruption. A crowd had gathered to watch a localized spectacle of violence. A young man was driving a horse at full speed, whipping and spurring the animal so relentlessly that it was covered in blood and foam. The Caliph asked the people standing nearby what this meant, searching for some justification or law that would allow such treatment. The bystanders had no answers. They told him the man did this every day at the same hour, and they had come to accept it as a normal part of the city's routine. Troubled by this apathy, the Caliph issued a second secret summons, marking the rider for interrogation. Cruelty, when repeated openly and without interference, quickly becomes an accepted part of the landscape for those who see it every day. The next evening, the setting shifted from the dusty streets back to the palace's grandeur. The Caliph was once again seated on his throne in full regalia. The beggar and the horseman were brought into the hall, standing confused before the assembled court. When they looked up, they realized the merchant they had encountered on the bridge and in the square was actually the ruler of the empire. On the street, these men had controlled the interaction through their own strange behavior. Now they were back within a system where the Caliph held every card. The Caliph turned his attention to the beggar, Baba Abdallah, and demanded to know why he had made such a public scandal of his almseeking. Baba Abdallah prostrated himself and confessed that his request for a blow was a form of self-punishment for a terrible crime he had committed years ago. A legal ruling can address the beggar's actions, but it cannot resolve the internal guilt that drove him to the bridge in the first place. This diagram shows the gap between the rigid grid of the law and the irregular, chaotic shapes of human nature. The law provides a structure for the city, but it cannot map the secrets and trauma that live within its citizens. The Caliph realized to govern effectively, he could not simply wait for reports in his palace. He had to go down into the chaos of individual lives and ask why the system was failing. Justice requires the slow, difficult work of unearthing the stories people hide in the shadows. To see the truth of his city, a ruler must be willing to hear the confession behind the crime.